One time on a sweltering August night, Grandfather and I made camp down by the ocean. He said, "While I teach you about the ways of war, I want you to know that the real struggle is between the two wolves that live inside each of us." "Two wolves?" I asked. Seated on an old log near the fire, my eyes were transfixed by the flames twisting uncontrollably in the night air. "One wolf is evil," he continued. "It is anger, envy, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, deceit, and false pride." He paused, poking the embers of our fire with a long stick he'd been carving. "The other is good. It is joy, love, hope, serenity, humility, loving kindness, forgiveness, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." I considered that for a minute, then tentatively asked, "Which wolf will win?" Sparks danced towards the stars as the old man stared into the glare of the flames and replied, "Whichever one you feed."
Faster than a speeding bullet.
I ran until my muscles burned and my veins pumped battery acid.
More powerful than a locomotive.
An idea is like a virus. Resilient. Highly contagious.
Able to leap tall buildings in a single bound.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Better Humanology Podcast. My name is Jared Moon, and with me is Talon Schwam. What's up, Talon?
What's up, everyone?
So this week, we have a lot to get into, but I feel like before we can even get into what we need to get into, we have to talk about what we've gotten into. It's a lot of intos, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just getting in there.
So we've been doing a lot of stuff lately, and we'll get to our challenges and whatnot, but I think that we need to kind of recap some of the stuff that we're doing, because you threw down, so last week we did the interview, but 2 weeks ago, episode 3 in season 2, you threw down a challenge on sugar.
I did.
Yeah, so you cutting sugar out for 7 days completely, and so... and I'm sure some of the listeners took on the challenge. How did the challenge go for you, my man?
I'm glad that we had the quote that we did last week. It talked about finding more things that forced you kind of to fail, because that can make you better in some ways. Because I'm sad and disappointed in myself to admit that I did not make it through the entire week without consuming sugar. I put the gauntlet down, and I myself let it just roll down the hill.
But you weren't perfect. But would you say that you
better?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Would you say that you consumed less sugar than you would have had you not taken on the challenge?
Absolutely. I mean, I became a better human in that respect. That's for damn sure. Because
so you're better. You're better.
Absolutely.
Did
the
you have
problem
any?
I came up with is like everything. I mean, freaking everything has sugar in it. I mean, no matter what it is, pretty much. Like, coffee. I can't wake up in the morning. I forgot there's sugar in coffee if you're going to have it taste anything good.
There's not actually sugar in coffee, unless you want to put something in.
I'm not one of the people that can do it black. I mean, I realized that real quickly last week. And my wife started to point out to me that, like, if you really break things down, you're looking at the different, like, everything that ends in like close, like sucrose, glucose, all this stuff, like everything's got sugar in it. Like if I have a sandwich and I have some bread at the ends of my, to round out my sandwich, I'm somehow still having some part of sugar in there. And so like, it was a mind, mess up. Yeah, of course.
Censored yourself there.
Yeah, I really did. We want to keep it clean, right? But it really was like I think I really tricked myself by making that challenge. I mean, I think I hit you up towards the end of the week, and I was like, you know what? I really feel like I challenge people to just go ahead and just end their lives. Like, you know what? Like, go ahead and just be done, because everything has sugar. I'm sure if anybody tried it out there, it was really, really challenging. If you completed it, then my hat's off to you, because you have got the ins and outs down. Maybe you listened to that nutrition episode and really took some better notes than I did. I don't know what it was, but that's something I'll have to continue working on.
I think what got you was the fact that when you realized, everything had sugar in it, you were just kind of like, F it. You got too overwhelmed, man. You shouldn't let your wife play the mind games on you.
Yeah, well, what happened was I ate something that I didn't know had sugar, and I can't remember what it was now. And she was like, you just ruined your challenge for the week. And I was like, what? No! And it was just like we talked about, where it's like, once you know you made the mistake,
you're off the bandwagon.
Yeah, it's like the waterfall just goes ahead and breaks over, and it just, there goes the whole dam, and that's what happened. Yeah, I was like, well, it's over now. And I still tried. I still did better, but it really did screw me over.
Well, that's awesome, man. I do think we should start recapping this stuff a little bit more. People know we're not just like blowing smoke. We're actually trying this stuff ourselves. And as we've said a million times over the course of the entire podcast, is we aren't the better humans preaching.
We aren't.
We're becoming better ourselves and reporting. And you became better through that challenge. And
I didn't feel better.
So the mental toughness challenge I gave last week was no complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go ahead and say up front that I was not perfect in completing that challenge either, but I was definitely better, a lot better. And, I think it actually, that challenge, so the no complaining was, I meant for it to be more like just like a mental toughness thing, see if you can do it. And it is a challenging thing to do. And it comes down to, my wife and I had this conversation multiple times throughout that week, because I told her, I'm not going to complain. Like, if you hear me complain, not allowed. And so, but then it was like, I was starting to find ways to like go around it, but like still complain. And it's like, is that still like I don't know. It was very interesting. But ultimately it made me like become like this ultra optimist about everything.
Oh.
And it was really good because I just, instead of like so it was like a progression. At first it was just hard, and then maybe that was the first day. Then the second day was like almost just trying to be funny and finding like ways to complain to my wife, like that weren't complaining, like just little things here and there. And then it just turned into like this, I'm going to actually do it, not try and cheat it or anything. And like, just turned into this like super optimistic thing. And it worked really well. I mean, I don't know. It was awesome. I think actually completing it, I'm going to see if I can become like a no complaining type of person and keep going with that one. I had a really good time with it. But it was challenging.
Yeah, I'm sure your wife would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself biting your tongue a lot? Yeah, I was about to just reflex say that, but
it happened definitely 2 or 3 times where I was just like, I was about to say something, and then I would just say something else completely. Like I was working on something, and it was like making me really frustrated, and Emily was in the room with me, and I was like, you know what? And I looked at her and I was just like, I love you very much. And then I just got back to work instead of saying anything about what the thing that was frustrating me. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
And I like to try and think a little bit out there a little bit. And so for me, I think you problem solving, even when you were trying to cut corners a little bit and still find ways to complain, even though you weren't using the words that are like, this sucks or blah, 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 whatever you would say, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's still making you better. Like, you're still problem solving in another way. You're still using your brain some routes that you don't usually use. So I think there's a little bit still getting better even through that.
Well, it'd be funny because it'd be little things like, say I was driving and I took the wrong turn. Just like something little, something you normally comment on.
Right.
It's a very small complaint, but you'd be like, dang, now I got to go the long way or whatever. And so like, I would just make it very apparent. I'd be like, oh, well, this is fantastic. Now I get to go the scenic route around back to our house instead of taking the shorter way. But I'm glad we're going to get to see different things we've never seen before.
There you go.
Like way over the top optimistic. Like, okay, we all know what you're trying to do there, But ultimately, it didn't come off as a complaint. So it was good, man.
Yeah, I have another update that's kind of. It's kind of, we had an episode about it recently, and I know it's something that Jared didn't really like talking about very much. And it has evolved a little bit since we talked about it. So Pokemon Go, right? We talked about, I mentioned it as like this phenomenon sweeping the world. Like if you look at like some of the stock jumps for like I don't know if you guys follow that stuff, but for like Nintendo's stock was going crazy for that first couple of weeks, and then like basically a week after the show, like their stock plummeted because the app found a lot of like I think it was hitting the wall. Like it wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing. So after we had the show, I had to try it. Before the show, I tried it out for a few hours. After we had the show, I liked the game. I played it for a couple of days, week or so after that. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and put it down. I agree with Jared. That piece of crap does not make you a better human. There's so many times I found myself, okay, well that Pokestop or whatever it is, this place I need to get to, I better drive there because that's more like that's too many miles away. That if I come back, I'm probably not going to get this or that, or I'm not going to be able to go out later or whatever. The baby needs to get back. Whatever it was just always some kind of excuse. I probably end up spending more money in gas than I end up burning calories walking or running around. And it's got lots of problems, glitches, and all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and say like update on that thing
does not make you better.
It does not make you a better human.
In theory, perhaps. All right, man, and I think I think we're good on updates. I'll give a Murph update. I was traveling this week up in New York, still in New York, visiting family, and
NYC.
Yeah, so I did bodyweight Murph this week, and just used they have a swing set here. Use a swing set for the pull-up bar, and got it done. All right, man, let's get into our challenges this week. All right, so the Better Human Bullets this week. Got a fitness challenge for everybody, a mental toughness challenge, and a book recommendation. So fitness challenge this week it has one of two names. It's either the EO3 5K or the Confused 5K. One of my favorite workouts, something I created a few years ago. Love doing it, and it's going to sound confusing at first, but you do this 6 times, so 6 rounds. You're going to run 800 meters. And then after you run that 800 meters, so a half mile, you do 3 rounds of 5 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, 15 squats. So 5, 10, 15. And so you do that 6 times. So 6 rounds of run 800 meters, 3, and then 3, 5, 10, 15s. 6 rounds, 800 meters, 3 rounds, 5, 10, 15. You do that 6 times. Then you're going to rest 3 minutes. You're going to do a 100-meter sprint, rest 60 seconds, do a 100-meter sprint. If this does sound confusing, you can just literally Google EO3 5K. You'll find it. And really challenging workout. Time cap yourself at 50 minutes. If you can't do it in under 50 minutes, then just stop and try and do it faster next time. Mental toughness challenge this week. We did the no complaining. I'm going to keep going with that one. I really think that it was making me better. And then this week, I want everyone to try and pick up a new habit, but only for 7 days, and it has to be something completely new. And this ties in with mental toughness because it's all about your sticking power. How well can you stick with something new that you're going to add? So is it going to be adding an audiobook to your daily routine, something you're going to do every single day for 7 days? Is it going to be a cold shower? Is it going to be listening to audiobook? Is it going to be working out? But you have to do it every single day for 7 days just to try and get a little more of that sticking power that is a huge part of mental toughness, in my opinion. Book recommendation this week, should I say. And I think it really ties into what we're going to be talking about today, but I think more than that, it ties into kind of this podcast in a way. It's the book. The book is called The Last Safe Investment: Spending Now to Increase Your True Wealth Forever. It's written by Brian Franklin and Michael Ellsberg. So it's the case investing in yourself before anything else. So I'll read a quick description of the book. It says, Michael Ellsberg and Brian Franklin think you've been fed a lie, that if you save for decades and invest in 401ks, IRAs, and a home, these investments will grow steadily over decades, allowing 20 to 30 years of secure, peaceful retirement. This might have been true at some point in the last century, but it's not true any longer. If you want to get ahead and enjoy a life of prosperity, the authors argue that you must first invest in the most powerful source of wealth you'll ever know, your own earning power, or yourself. So it's essentially, the whole book is about, it does kind of get in the weeds a little bit with some of that stuff, and I wouldn't really consider it like an actual investing book or something like that if you're really interested in stock market or real estate or anything like that. It's just about investing in yourself, making yourself better, basically becoming better. So, learning more, trying more, investing in your education and stuff like that to further your earning potential, just becoming me sidestepping, talking about, just if you're making yourself better, your relationships are going to be better. Yeah, your career is going to be better. You're going to be happier, everything like that. So I really recommend that book this week. Really good. And one more time, that's The Last Safe Investment, Spending Now to Increase Your True Wealth Forever, written by Brian Franklin and Michael Ellsberg. And if you want to get that book for free with a trial, 30-day trial to Audible, go ahead and go over to audibletrial.com/betterhuman. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/betterhuman. Sign up there, and you can get this book or any other audio book that you want.
Awesome. I think that sounds like a really, really good one. I think I need to pick that one up. But I probably feel like that every week.
It's a solid book.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, I love how it's going to fit exactly what we're going to talk about later.
Oh, I do want to say there's a book I'm about to start working on. And it's like a 24-hour audiobook. So I won't actually be able to recommend this book for like 2 weeks, because that's probably how long it's going to take me. But I'm very excited about it. I'm starting it tomorrow, and it's going to... So most audiobooks that I read are probably like 7 to 8 hours.
Right.
This is like close to 25 hours. It's going to take forever. But
we already all know that reading the encyclopedia makes you smarter, Jared.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a quick recap on the encyclopedia. Just A through E, though.
Yeah, 24 hours. Okay, so Talents Challenge this week. It's probably exactly what you guys kind of expect from me. No more sugar. We're going to get away from those kind of things. These are going to be challenges that are reasonable, that are going to easily make you better, and something that you're going to be able to do. It's not mean that's not going to be hard, but what I want you guys to do is each person that you come across for this next week, each person, if it's somebody, if it's your boss, if it's somebody you don't like, if it's your wife, if it's your husband, kids, whatever, anybody, somebody you like or dislike, it could be an in-law, sometimes it's like that. Try give them a compliment, just one compliment. I mean, even if your interaction is really short, you can put out a compliment, and it can be something as small as, you look like you're having a good day, or you have nice shoes on. Something small like that, it can brighten up the other person's day a little bit, and in turn, that'll brighten yours, and that becomes addictive over time. So just try it for a week, see what happens, see how you like it.
All right, man, you want to hop into the main...
Let's get it.
The main entree for today.
Let's get it.
All right, guys, so we're talking about solitude today. Big topic, and I want to read a little passage real fast.
Let's hear it.
All right, so create time alone with yourself. When seeking the wisdom and clarity of your own mind, silence is a helpful tool. The voice of our spirit is gentle and cannot be heard when it has to compete with others. Just as it is impossible to see your reflection in troubled water, so too is it with a soul. In silence, we can sense eternity sleeping inside us. Solitude.
I love it. When I first heard that, we were going over some topics a couple weeks back, and I first heard that, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this topic. I see so much benefits in solitude, and we talk about them all the time in my schooling and stuff like that in psychology. But for me, I call it me time. I know Jared doesn't probably like that term.
I think it sounds so selfish to me. That's the only reason I don't like
solitude sounds so negative to me.
It does solitude does have some negative connotations.
Sounds like loneliness. And I'm like, no, it's not. You're taking it for yourself. It's like you're figuring out how to be on your own.
Solitary confinement. Yeah. You're a big me timer though, right?
I am.
Yeah, let's I want to talk about that first. What does me time mean to you?
Me personally, I feel like, naturally, maybe it doesn't sound like it on the podcast sometimes because we have a podcast at all, and when I meet people, I think I'm very animated and probably cartoonish when I talk about stories and stuff. But for me, I'm actually an introvert. And so basically, I think people misunderstand the definition between extrovert and introvert a lot of times. It really comes down to where you get your energy from. And so extroverted people get their energy from being around others and from doing things with others, whereas people like me, no matter how they seem when they're around other people, get their energy when they're on their own. They're introverted. And so for me, that's kind of what it comes down to. Is it's not really about, whatever I'm doing when I'm by myself. It's just that almost quiet time for me to to think, to analyze, to really solidify what I feel and believe and plan to do and what I am. And so for me, that's kind of how it is. It's kind of like it's like recharging my batteries when I'm by myself.
I mean, I completely agree with that one, man. I think I'm definitely not an extrovert. Introvert, definitely want to be, I wouldn't say alone all the time, but I definitely need that time.
Yeah.
I think it's important. And I know Emily's the same way. Is Rachel? Rachel's Talon's wife. How is she?
Shout out, hey baby.
Introvert, extrovert.
She I think she's extroverted. I don't know what she would say, but she's not really one that really likes alone time. I think she would much rather, if it's not being spent with me, she'd like to be going, hanging out with others, and she likes to be social and things like that. So it works out kind of funny. I think we're in a marriage where the people are opposite on that.
Yeah.
Especially for the one that needs the alone time. I mean, for both, I guess, really. I shouldn't look at it one-sided, because one's like, hey, we need to go and do something. The other one's like, hey, no, we need to you go ahead. Leave me alone for a little while, right? But no, I mean, love overcomes all, right? But yeah, so it's fun. It's funny, some of those challenges. But and I think you wouldn't guess it. I think if you, I mean, I don't know what you would have guessed if you had to have, but I think most people probably guessed the opposite for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, if they're listening to a podcast, maybe they think we're a couple of extroverts sitting around just extroverting our hearts out. But
yeah, listen to me.
No, man. So let's hop into it a little bit more. What do you see as the biggest pros to solitude? I want to bring up some cons, but not necessarily in a negative way. I just want to. I definitely not, like I just told you, like I'm very much like you in the fact that I am an introverted person and need my me time and see the benefit. And I want to talk about how it can make you better, but I also want to bring up some, maybe some devil's advocate to me time. But
okay,
I want you to go first.
I hope I don't hit your devil's advocate con stuff when I throw out a disclaimer.
You do love the disclaimer.
I do. So disclaimer is, like, as you kind of alluded to it already, is it does not mean loneliness, and that does not mean wanting to and always being on your own. Me time should be a set amount of time or a short amount of time each day or each week, not like trying to be a hermit crab and shutting yourself off from society and always being on your own, because that only leads to loneliness, and that further leads to despair and depression. So no, that's not what we mean by me time. Okay, hopefully I didn't take away your steam.
No, man.
Good. Okay, so I have just a ridiculously long laundry list of benefits for me time / solitude, whatever we're calling it. Should I go down all of them, or should I just start hitting them and you stop me during and see where we go? Because it's about 18 items long with all my research.
I mean, maybe just spout them off, and then we can kind of pick out a few to dissect a little bit further.
Okay. So, I'll just jump in. So, number one, avoid irritability. Number two, lower stress.
So these are things that me time does, or solitude does.
After you've had it, it helps you do these things or have these things.
So let's back up for a second. What does me time look like? Because we kind of had this conversation before. So the difference between me time and solitude, to me, and this is my perception of it, is me time could almost just be any activity that you want to do for yourself. That's the way I kind of see. This is how I see it. It's like me time could just be, if me time is video games, that could be your me time. You know what I mean? But solitude, to me, the reason I think that there's a differentiation in there, solitude is like being like alone and still and silent. Not necessarily like meditating, but I see solitude as like a purposeful calm.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think me time can be like a video game or something like reading a book or lifting weights or going for a run or whatever like that is. But I agree. I think your definition of solitude is more my definition of me time. I think it's more active thinking. It kind of falls in the realm like we talked about anti-meditation. It doesn't have to be, but I feel like that's the best use of the time. But I feel like, yeah, me time is more of that, whatever kind of you do alone on that kind of re-energizes you and helps you get away. But solitude, it does have that connotation that it's like, okay, this is just me doing nothing almost, doesn't it?
I'm going into my chamber of solitude.
Yeah, right. Isn't that from like Harry Potter or something?
I think it's Superman or something like
Oh,
that.
is it? Okay. I'm getting my nerd mixed up now. All right, you want me to keep going or what?
Well, did we agree on what it was? So you're saying
I think we disagree. I think we have different terms for
no,
the same
but
thing.
you're seeing me time. You say me time and you mean my definition of solitude, and I say solitude and I mean your definition of me time.
No. I think I include some of those things that you don't include in me time, like doing an activity. I think I still include those because those still have
So working
benefits.
out is a form of solitude or me time.
If you're doing it by yourself, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I mean that's that's,
I mean, I think if you're doing it at the gym, no, because you're spending your time looking around. You see this guy or gal doing a workout extra hard. Maybe that motivates you differently. Maybe you look in the mirror multiple times and you see other people. You know, maybe you hear external things. It's different if you're doing it like a gym, but like if you're like in a garage gym,
gym athlete. Yeah,
and you're by yourself, then you're probably getting that solitude time in as well. That's probably what you want to be doing for your re-energizing, if that's what you're doing.
Okay, so we mostly agree. We mostly agree.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get back to your list, man.
All right. So number one, I think I said I want it lowers stress. I think that's obvious, like we talked about with introverts. But it can help you avoid irritability, give you greater energy, and the one I think is most important, mental clarity. It kind of gives you opportunity to reboot your mind. That's if you're taking it more actively. It helps you concentrate, empowers you to enjoy the time you have by yourself the more you spend doing it. Kind of when I talk about things being addictive and the more repetitive that you do them. It can help you find your own voice about things. It can help you focus on the positives in your life. A lot of times things that are going around you help force you to focus on negatives, like a paper coming up or a project that you have to do. It can give you focus on the positives of having company around, because when you're by yourself, you remember like, oh, well, I mean, I don't have so-and-so to bounce this off of, or I don't have so-and-so to laugh with or to share this with. So it can kind of think about that in a positive way too. It can help you build self-esteem and value yourself more. It can give you better sleep, better resistance to sickness with less adrenal fatigue. Opportunity to think deeply, simplifies your life, maintain your own perception of the world. A lot of times others can rub off on you, and that's not always the best thing, unless you're having a bunch of iron people around you, right? Mm-hmm. Learn more about yourself. Forces you to become less dependent on others. Learn how to make yourself happy. Save money, unless what you do is you go out and spend a bunch of it, like.
So if you're not doing your me time, you're just gonna go out and spend your. I get.
Allows you to set your own priorities straight without outside interdependence. And then for number one for me, this is like existential here. This is going a little outside of the box, but it reminds us that as humans, we're always truly alone in this life, in this world. Like, we're born alone, we die alone. Like, no one can be with us in our bodies and share the same experiences that we have. And so it forces you to kind of accept your uniqueness, kind of accept what makes you different and the experiences that you have and how that's different from everybody else. And it helps you kind of appreciate that.
You know what's funny is you're probably making some extroverts just cringe right now.
Freak out.
No me
This
time.
isn't just me though. This is the research here.
Yeah, I know. Just talking about making people uncomfortable. I know some
So
people
is that how
can't.
you feel when I talk about those?
You know, some of the points you bring up, I understand to a point, and I definitely could see how you could be less stressed out by being able to sort out your thoughts and.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think the biggest part of all this is there are a lot of benefits, but I just don't think that anyone actually does it. You know what I mean? Like, and we talked about, so I do work out alone all the time in my garage, and in all honesty, I prefer it that way. Like I understand the value of having like a training partner train with me. They can push you harder and, there's a lot of stuff, but I prefer that time to be alone. And I've talked about this before. I talked about it when we were talking about Murph, in this, that's obviously in the fitness context is like, I like to push myself at least once a week to a point where I get to meet myself, is what I was saying.
Right.
It's like you're getting to like, you break down all those barriers and then you're like, you try to push forward once all those barriers are broken down. You've met yourself. You really know how you talk to yourself and everything like that. Take fitness out of the equation. How often do people talk to themselves and like kind of find out who they are? So I think that there's a lot of benefit here. But the things I see it improving on top of what you're saying is I think if you can know how to talk to yourself better, I mean, this is like one of like 3 things they teach Navy SEALs is, you're to become more mentally tough and to get through this stuff is change the conversation in your brain,
Right.
And if you're not aware of the conversation in your brain, you're not going to be able to change it. And I think a lot of people have either really good positive self-talk or negative self-talk and they don't even know it, because they never spend time alone. So that's why my view of solitude should be something that is kind of like, I hate to even use the word meditation because I feel like it's just getting thrown around way too much these days. But essentially that's what it would be, but not like a practice meditation or guided meditation, just being alone with yourself for a little while. And the reason the kind of the negative side to quote unquote me time, what I was saying, what I was going to bring up to kind of counter the points is I don't like it when people have like a me time, and who am I to judge, but like, a me time that is not really helping them in any way. And
Mr. Productive. Yeah.
It bothers me. So when I mentioned video games earlier, if like video games is your me time, maybe that's
why you hated Pokemon.
No, it's hard for me to understand why, like, I don't understand that type of me time. Like, I don't feel like that's as productive. I feel like that's, maybe that's as like a stress, it's a stress relief type thing. Like playing video games is stress relief. We'll call it that. Like, it's not like this me time that you have to have in your life. Like there are a million ways that you can relieve stress, or I guess the biggest point I try to make, that comes to mind when I'm thinking about me time versus solitude is you don't deserve me time. You deserve solitude. And I'm really big with the word deserve. Like it's bad almost, because I don't think anybody deserves anything. And so, yeah, it just okay. I already see the wheels turning. So let's dive into it a little bit, man. What do you think about my craziness?
Well, how, maybe our listeners know enough about Crazy Jared and Mr. Productivity and just like reading 4 books in a week. And I bet you finished that 24-hour book probably in a week, even though you talked about
it'll take a few weeks.
Happen.
It'll take a few weeks.
Something that people need to realize about Jared is Jared doesn't like to waste even a single second. And by when I say waste, I mean like, if he spends too long staring at something he passes by, it's like, oh, I'm wasting time. I need to go be doing something productive. I need to be getting better right now. Does this make me better? It's not making me better, so I need to be getting better right now. And I think it's amazing. It's a really, really good example for a lot of us on how we can get better. It's like we shouldn't be spending so much time not getting better. We should be spending a majority of our time getting better. But I think you're such in the minority. I feel like everybody has to have some downtime, no matter what it is. If you're watching a movie or playing a game, if you're actually literally reading a book and not listening to it, or whatever it is, I think there has to be downtime for most individuals out there. And I feel like,
no, I think that you should have it. I'm just saying it's not.
But you don't deserve it.
You don't deserve it.
So feel guilty by the time you take to calm down your stress.
That's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make if you don't have a productive me time,
okay,
then you should not feel entitled to your time. Does that make sense? That this is the only real negative I have with me time. So it's a small thing in all honesty, but this is the only like kind of counterpoint I have to the me time is getting this entitlement or deserving mentality of something that's not even that good for you in the first, like using it as an excuse. Okay. So say I heard the guys on the Better Humanology podcast say you should do solitude or me time. So instead of doing something I'm supposed to be doing, I need to go do my me time thing, which doesn't help anyone except for my entertainment purposes. So you see the path I'm going down is people like to use excuses, and I feel like me time could be used as this like I'm entitled to this, I deserve it, so I'm allowed to do it, but really you're just using it as an excuse to not be doing something else you should be doing. Or and I'm not saying like not using every second to be productive. Like I know you think that's the way that
I think I know what you're saying better now.
Yeah. Okay.
It reminds me of the nutrition episode we just had a couple weeks back, where we talked about sometimes people can fall into the pit of like, well, I had a really tough day, so I deserve to have this slice of cake or whatever. I think you're using the word deserve kind of in more that context, where it's like, I had such and such, or I feel such and such, or, I didn't get time at all like this, or I'm so stressed out, or whatever it is. I deserve this me time, even if it's a negative thing. And that's what's bad. That's what you're saying. Am I getting that better?
Yeah. Okay. And maybe I did a poor job explaining it first.
No. I think you did a great job explaining it. I just think in some ways I agree. I think maybe you can replace some of those negative things. Like instead of cake, you could have something that's a little, not so unhealthy, right? You could have an apple because it's sweeter. I don't know. Put some peanut butter. I don't know. Whatever, right? Or like if you're playing video games, like maybe you could write in your journal. I mean, that's probably not quite as exciting. Or you could, I think there's other things you could do that could be positive. But at the same time, I still feel like maybe you don't necessarily need to take it so often. Maybe you don't need to cancel or put out better things that you could be doing, or replace positive things you're doing already with negative things that are me time. But still, the fact of I honestly feel like the fact of taking time for yourself is something that when I was a counselor, I was teaching often, is so beneficial just for like repairing a lot of the things that go on in your mind during the day. And for me, the number one thing I feel like I harp on all the time, especially in season 1, I feel like was reducing stress. It's like, I know, so probably me and you, I know, and I don't want to like toot our own horns a little bit, is me and you are the kind of guys that we just don't really, succumb to stress that often. I think we feel like we are so aware of it, and we're so aware of what we're doing and what we want to do and where we're going, that stress doesn't really enter our mind as much. So it's kind of harder for us to really conceptualize what a lot of people deal with. But stress is killing so many people every year. I mean, it's shortening lives every year. And I feel like this is for introverts especially, this is such a helpful thing for those people to reduce those stress levels.
I'm with you, man. I'm all about it. I wanted to bring up, like I said, I gave my my disclaimer at the beginning that I'm super pro me time, solitude. I'm an introvert. Like I need those things, but I just wanted to give my one counterpoint to the where it could go. I don't like to give people excuses. Like I don't want our podcast ever be an excuse for someone to be a lazy piece. That's essentially
not what we're saying.
Yeah,
no. I think we'll talk about that here a little bit later. Also, like how to best use me time, probably. But I definitely think it should be used for productive things if it can be. It needs to be used for active thinking if it can be. I mean, it should be. Yeah, absolutely. I like challenge people to use, their me time for positive things in their life, not for negative things. I mean, if you play a video game once, like during the week, maybe once a week instead of 4 days or 5 days out of the week, but who knows? I do have a couple points on how to make me time, if that's okay.
Go for it, man.
Okay. So these they're not like anything groundbreaking, but if you're struggling to get me time, I know I am. I love my me time, but I have a child now. So with a family, it's much harder to get your me time. If you just join a relationship, or you just joined college, or got a new job, or whatever it is, it might be hard right now to get your me time in. So the couple of tips I have is, number one is to schedule it in. And I know for me that probably sounds a little oxymoronic, because I'm like, no, schedules, as much as you can get away from them, do so. But You have to. If you're gonna have your me time, and you're having a hard time doing it,
I love Talon with a kid.
it's making me better.
He just suggested we schedule something. I love it. I love it.
I mean, if it's not scheduling like right in a planner, it's like scheduling, with your spouse or
Yeah.
with your friend that you usually go out with at such and such time during the night or whatever it is. It's just letting them know, like people around you, this is. I need to take Tuesday, or I need to take a couple hours here, or I need 10 minutes there. But I think it's necessary if you're not getting it. Another thing is take 5. So this is like you're at work, and sometimes people need me time when they're just hitting a really stressful situation. And the worst thing you can usually do is just like, okay, like I have to run away and get away from this situation. But if you're in a tough time, usually take 5, like, hey, can I take 5 real quick? Isn't going to be too big a deal. I mean, if you're getting counseled or something like that, that might be tough. But you take 5, go, just breathe. A lot of things we talk about in the show, just breathe, think about your breaths only. Don't worry about active thinking if you're only taking 5 minutes for your me time. Maybe stretch, just do nothing. Like, don't look at like a to-do list for later on. Just taking that 5 minutes sometimes if you're not able to get anything else can help.
You remember when we did the meditation episode, and I did you use some like college recording or like some university recording thing, and I used Headspace, the app on my phone, for the meditation.
Yeah,
it's funny because they have like these like 5-minute SOS. They call them SOS sessions.
Oh, like save me.
Like if you're having like a meltdown, like these quick 3 to 5 minute like emergency meditation sessions. So it just reminded me of that when you said that.
Yeah, I think it's in the same kind of thing. Same kind of zone. You don't need that. I mean, didn't Headspace cost you some money or something like that?
It costs monthly.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you just listen to the Better Humanology podcast, you don't have to worry about paying. A couple other quick things. It's like you can use your lunch break for that. That's an obvious one. Saying no to people sometimes is kind of an obvious one. We had a whole show about that. I don't. When kids are reading or napping, that's kind of an obvious one. You can get away. Waking up 10 minutes earlier can be one, and I know not everybody likes to hear that, but if you're not getting it and you need it, I mean, that's one way to do it. Turning off your cell phone, putting a chore off for a day. I know Jared probably hates that, but if it's just one day out of the week that you're like, okay, I'm gonna do one extra chore on Tuesdays because I'm gonna take 10-15 minutes on Mondays.
It's a slippery slope, my friend.
Yeah, all right. Talk about things being addictive when you start doing them, but that's why this needs to be in moderation in some of these creating time things. But yeah, and I kind of mentioned it already. The biggest one is if you don't live alone, letting your roommates or your spouse or your kids know, whatever, like, hey, I'm going to be taking this time so that you're not interrupted during that time. So just good communication as always.
Are we fully covered on...
I think we're fully covered on everything I have for me time. You have anything else for Solitude, or have we covered it all?
No, dude, I covered it. Things I would do with Solitude, because to be honest, this isn't something that I do enough. We've talked about on the podcast multiple times. I love to plan. I think planning helps me. You asked me a very interesting question. This was several months ago, but you asked, like, what do you think your coping mechanism is when you are really stressed?
Sure.
And you said you immediately followed that with, you can't say working out. And it's probably true because I only use working out to get better, It's just such an enjoyment thing to me. It's my video games to someone, whatever. Like I love to work out, so I really can't say that. Maybe it helps me live a less stressful life. So you were right on the money for not allowing me to say that. So it really made me think about. I was like, okay, what is my coping mechanism if I do feel really stressed? And it is planning. Like I feel like if I can sit down and plan something out, because even if you're in the worst situation ever, you're in that situation. Like there's no, like, you could sit around and dream about a different situation, but you're
Sure.
in that situation, so you're in it. No matter how shitty it is, like, you're in that situation, and so now all you can do is get a plan to get out of it. And so as long as you have that plan, and it works for me. Maybe it works for other people. If you have that plan, then now it can alleviate that stress because, like I said, you're already in the shitty situation. Now you got to plan out. Just follow your plan, stick to the plan, and get out of it. So, yeah.
I think it's a great point. I think it's a really good thing to do during your solitude or your me time.
Love it, man.
I mean, it's something I do too. I don't write it down but it's something I might be doing on my drive.
You're a planner, a scheduler. You're all these things. You just don't want to embrace it. It's like all under the radar. All right, man. Do you want to talk about some wolves?
Yes.
All right. So, if someone wasn't paying attention at the beginning of the podcast, Talon
Shame on you.
read an awesome passage about. It comes from a lot of different places. I did a little bit of research on that, and like some people say it's from the Cherokee Indian tribes. Some people say it's not. Some people say it's from Knights. Some people say it's not. You know, it doesn't really matter where it came from, but it is getting. I think it's getting more popular. The whole which wolf are you feeding on a daily basis?
I had heard of this story
I'm gonna pull it up while you say that.
Well before we brought it up on the show. And I feel like it's even if you haven't heard that story, little quick thing that I read, you've heard of the concept. I mean, everybody's heard of the concept of your conscience, or the struggle with good versus evil going on inside you, or productive versus unproductive. Or I like to put it as hope versus despair, kind of wolves. But everybody's heard, I think, typically of that kind of internal battle that we all kind of deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I think do you want me to? I'll read over just the wolves again. So one wolf is evil.
Yeah.
It is anger, envy, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, deceit, false pride. And the other is good. It is joy, love, hope, serenity, humility, loving kindness, forgiveness, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, faith. Goes on to say which wolf will win. The answer being whichever wolf you feed. So
how did you read it?
How do you know which wolf you're feeding on a daily basis?
Well, I think at first just becomes being aware of that you have this struggle going on inside you. I mean, I think that's probably one of the last things we think of when we wake up. It's like, I can do things that I need to be doing, or I can do things I don't need to be doing, or I can think negative thoughts like, goodness, I had to wake up at such and such time. Goodness, I have to get the same outfit I wore on last week and go to the same job with the same boring people. Or you can, think positive thoughts, and ones that are uplifting and, empowering. So I think the first step is becoming aware of that you have this internal struggle going on, that you control the ability to feed the wolves on your own. And
something I wanted to do on this, when I knew we'd be talking about this, I wanted to give like a super practical way.
Good.
To go about this. I'm a practical.
Love your practicality.
You love it, right? So I started using this app recently on my phone. It's called
Remind me which wolf to feed.
It's called Track and Share.
Okay.
And in all honesty, it's like a $5 app, way overpaid for it, but I think there's a free version too. It's called Track and Share, and you can track anything that you want. I mean, you could track back pain, you could track habits, you could track anything. Whether it's just essentially you did it, you didn't do it, you could track your mood, like literally anything.
Like a habit tracker, kind of.
It's kind of like a habit tracker. It's just a little more robust than some of the other. Because I actually did a lot of research on those before I downloaded this one, and I liked it the best. But because I honestly think, all right. So the Aristotle quote.
Oh yeah, it's on my wall.
Yeah, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit.
But a habit.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so I think that we are, in the grand scheme of life, like you like people have all these like grand ideas and like things that they think they are and they want to be. They have this. They maybe you have this view or picture of yourself of like what you think that the person that you are, and it might not be accurate at all.
Right.
But what I think that what we actually are is our daily behavior. That's what we are. And so it's what you're doing as your daily behavior over time, extrapolated, like that makes you who you are. So whether you want to call it your daily habits or whatever, but it doesn't have to be a habit. That's why, this tracking app can track anything, because if you say you were tracking something as simple as back pain, and I'll bring this all back to the wolves, but like if you were tracking back pain and say if I just asked, I was like, Talon, how often does your back hurt? And you're like, well, I mean, it's just probably a couple days a month or whatever. I don't think it's a big problem. And then you're really tracking it, and you're like, holy shit, like 23 days out of 30, my back was hurting. According to me actually sitting down here and tracking it, I actually do have a back problem. Or maybe it's something good, maybe it's something bad. But when it comes to, a bigger picture, which wolf are you feeding? Are you generally a negative person or generally a positive person? You can track all of these behaviors. Like you could actually just all the things that I read, like go back, rewind the podcast, and track all of those emotions in this app, and just say like you could just do a yes or no, and then look at your graph over the course of a month, over the course of a year, and find out which wolf you're actually feeding. And this goes to the big picture, like all of those feelings and emotions and stuff like that, or smaller stuff like tracking something as simple as training. How often do you train? I think I work out most days, and then you actually look at it and you worked out 3 times this month. I think actually tracking what you do is really beneficial into seeing which wolf you feed, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thing. I think people are really busy a lot of times and probably aren't really keeping track of stuff. But I think for me, the solution is mindfulness. And I know that's hard. That's easy to say and hard to put in practice, because there's so many things that I'm sure that I'm missing out on that I could use that tracker for, that I could really lock down. But I feel like with something so big like this is who you are. Like, this is who you are every day. You're either the good wolf or you're the bad wolf every day. Like, you're either messing stuff up and unhappy and just envious and all those things we read, or you're the good wolf and you're lifting people up and you're positive and you're doing good things. And like, for me, this is what I constantly, I'm not saying I'm the better human and I'm always the most mindful, but this is something I worry about almost, I feel like, every second, is like, which wolf am I feeding? Really, not the words, those aren't the words I say, but I think that's just being mindful of like who we are. Like, I think that's something that, me time solitude is a good use of too, is keeping track, and if keeping track is if you need to do that on an app, I think that's great.
No, the reason I think that people need to, I'm saying that people should, because I think your mindfulness combined with the practicality that I gave,
you're probably right,
gives people, because what you're saying is what the point I was trying to make is that most of the time, if we just sit there and think about something, like, you're a little more intuitive and you do this on a daily basis, but some people, if they don't stop about every once a week and try to think, which wolf am I feeding?
Sure.
The answer in their head is going to be the more positive response, most likely, if they want to be like, no, I think I was a pretty good person.
No,
this
you're
week.
probably right. They're probably not going to sell themselves short. I think we all want to look at ourselves in the positive light. So I think you're probably right. Doing both of them with the intent of being mindful in yourself, I think you're probably right. It's a good combination.
Yeah, just to see what you actually like. Because say you actually you put in the tracker app, you actually just put all of those emotions like anger, envy, greed, arrogance, like joy, love, hope. Like, and just ask yourself at the end of the day, go through, like, was I envious today? No. Did I love today? Yes. If you actually did that, and you can actually go look at the, green check marks and red X's of like, okay, what kind of person I am. And I'm not saying do this for the rest of your life. do it for a week and just see which wolf that you're actually feeding.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a good exercise.
No, I think it's a good point. It falls right in line with what I'm talking about with being aware of the wolves, because it helps you do that. I think a couple of things that we talked about that I brought up are benefits from me time solitude earlier are kind of, or at least one of them is a good way to feed the right wolf. So a couple of points here. I won't make it too long. One is take a break from the world around you and the outside perspective. That doesn't mean be by yourself, but necessarily. I mean, it can, but it really means like, the news, like what's going on in the world, like sports news, YouTube, TV, and kind of keeping your own perspective unflooded. Because oftentimes, like we just mentioned, you're going to have a more positive outlook on what what you're doing on your own self, on what you feel like, and you're going to feel good about how you see the world. And sometimes just keeping yourself a little bit, distant from a lot of the negative things. I mean, let's face it, a lot of the things that are reported in the news, even sports news, are negative things. If you're not hearing about, a horrible tornado or tsunami or somewhere around the world, you're hearing about a new drug suspension from one of your favorite football players. So it's a lot of things that you can hear about that can take your perspective away, take your time away, and kind of bring you towards that bad wolf that can kind of bring you over the world sucks. This bad stuff happened, or my fantasy football team's ruined, or, one of my friends in another city has their house, flooded, whatever. There's lots of things out there that can force you towards that negative side, that negativity. And so sometimes just turning that off, not forever, and I'm still not being a hermit, but just getting away from some of those outside influencers can help be the right wolf.
I like that one because I don't watch any news or anything.
Yeah, I know. You said it makes you a better human, right?
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways it can. Absolutely. Another thing is something that Jared brought up on the show a couple weeks ago. And just because of all the positivity that it keeps flowing through you, the feelings it gives you, is to do what you love. Do things you love. If you love doing them, they make you more happy. You'll be more successful. And we've talked about it before, but it's something that you're feeding into that positivity, that good side, that that hopeful wolf when you're doing things that you love to do, and building on those strengths. And the last thing I have for feeding the right wolf is keeping others in mind. So we talked about, finding yourself, meeting yourself, understanding yourself better tonight a lot. But it's also keeping others' feelings in mind, their thoughts, their intents in mind, thinking a little bit about the greater good, and just that all feeds into an overall altruistic mindset. And we talk about, some of those good examples in The Good Wolf. It's good and hopeful and faithful and all those things. And this kind of feeds into, so you're not just so self-indulged all the time. You're going to spend a lot of time, if you're doing a lot of these things, feeding the right wolf, of thinking about how you feel about things and how that relates to other people. But it helps so much more as well to try and spend just as much time thinking about how others might perceive those, how others might be helped out by some of the things that you think and things that go on in the world. So that also can help feed into that goodness of the right wolf. I got some how to feed the bad wolf things we can stay away from if you want to go over that.
How to not feed the bad wolf.
No, how to feed the bad wolf.
Why would you ever want to feed the bad wolf?
Right, these are things you don't want to do.
Yeah, so things you don't want to do. Okay.
Yeah, these are people are using their me time negatively, right? These are the bad people feeding the bad wolf. So number one is numb yourself. Right? So if you're addicted to alcohol or drugs or video games or whatever it is, something that's negative that's not helping you, or TV, you sit on the couch and you watch TV, or you just can't get away from Netflix, that's a way of numbing yourself from the world. That's a way of feeding the bad wolf, making yourself worse every day, and not getting any further, not getting closer to anything you want to accomplish or achieve in life. So that's number one. Number two is losing control of yourself. And this kind of ties into number one, because if you're addicted to something, then you already lost control of your own life. It'll take a lot for you to go ahead and get it back. But you can start right now. That's when you decide that it's going to change and when you get control, that's when it starts. And that by doing that, you let the world consume you. So you don't want that. Number three is with feeding the bad wolf is if you don't do the thing we talked about, keeping others in mind. If you only think about yourself, how you can get on top, how you can achieve what you want, how you can, earn what the amount of money you want to make or make the gains that you want to make. You're only thinking about yourself, not others. Then you're feeding the bad wolf because you're being selfish. You're not being the good, like we talked about, or the hopeful or helping others or, being good for the whole world in that sense. Yeah. And then the last one was spending me time on the couch. Obviously, nobody's getting better, thrown on the couch. If they're wasting away their time that they have, that precious time they have alone, there's all these things we talked about feeding the good wolf that you can do on your own while you're by yourself, where you have that quiet time, that you're probably not going to be able to do if you're with other people. If you waste away that precious little time you have by yourself on the couch, just doing nothing, then you are getting immensely worse. You're not becoming a better human.
Yeah, don't listen to this podcast. That's
Yeah.
feeding the bad wolf.
Turn it off. Get out of here.
All right, man.
That's all I got. I know.
That's all I got. So I leave everyone with two things. One, if you're enjoying the podcast, go ahead and head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review and a positive comment. We would very much appreciate that.
We really would.
Helps the show out a ton. And then two, just a question. Which wolf are you feeding?
Oh.
All right, guys. Till next week.
Your best. Losers always whine about their best.